I think one of the big key things to being a Type 3 IC is not only thinking about what you have at the very moment, is thinking out ahead. I was thinking a couple, 3 days out ahead so that you can start planning ahead. So again, you don't fall behind that power curve. And if you do those things and start think out ahead a few days, you're able to again bring in other individuals to assist you in those other functions, to be able to, so you can concentrate on what your job is. And your job at that point is to be the incident commander for that incident itself. So just kind of planning ahead and planning your organization to what you think the fire may do or whatever the incident may be.
Making sure that I've got everything written down so I'm not missing anything when we start doing briefings with the resource advisors and with the line officers, making sure that they have a really good picture of what's going on, or I'm supported at that level. Once that's in place, really the organizing of the folks on the ground is easy. It's dealing with the bigger picture stuff. The line officer support is huge. So for me, it's a couple things, I guess. Organization, using the checklist that we've got in place, writing everything down as much as you possibly can, listening to your folks, not making any quick judgments until you actually have all the information, making sure that your decisions are supported not just by the folks on the ground implementing, but by the folks that you're working for, line officers.
Notes are important. You know, I'm not to say that my memory is an ironclad. Well, let's just say my memory is an ironclad, and as things are coming around at you, you know, you might say your name and I'll acknowledge it and then forget it in a minute. And so if you can write down anything, you know, and for one, you're trying to get your resources in order, timelines, you know, and we're always told to document. I always have a tool with me, but you know, my main tool is usually a steno pad and a pen, just to try to make sense out of things. And then sometimes you get good ideas too, or somebody says something, you write those down, and you know, you might go back later on. I find that to be very helpful. I've seen people with little tape recorders to do the same thing. There's a lot more high-tech people out there than me, especially younger guys, that probably have some really cool stuff, but anyway, the idea is the same. A good one is you come in there and you're starting to get things organized. As more's come in there, you can have a person go and say, hey, Travis, if you could, I'm going to have everybody report here to you, kind of hold them, or, you know, as a situation, I'll have you briefed. You can kind of get them in and we'll feed them in, you know, so at least you have like a door, you know, where you don't have people running around you don't know about. Where you can do that, that's great, and usually you can always find a way to do that, especially if you have LEOs in the interface, you know, that's usually going on.
First thing you got to do is clear leader's intent. You're going to get leader's intent from your line officer, being the agency rep or whatever, but then you need to be able to take that back to your operations staff, basically to the whole fire. And one of the things I require is, when we're, especially on a Type 3 show, is we all get together every morning. Sometimes hot shot crews will come in and they'll want to just bring a couple, their superintendent and their assistant soups and their crew bosses in, or their squad bosses, and I ask them to bring everybody, because most Type 3 shows, less than 100 people, you can all stand around and talk, and that's where you get good communication. So, but I make it clear, what are we going to do? We come up with a good strategy and good leader's intent, and then I don't really worry that much about the tactics. I figure if I come up with a good strategy, I understand where we're going and what we want to do, then that's when I pass on that. I trust the folks I'm working with. We've all been through the same training. We know what we're doing, and pass that on and let those guys get out there and apply those strategies and as they see fit, with checking the other things.
You know, one of the tricks, and you get on some of your questions later, is you know, what to do. If you can get somebody just to take notes, drive you around, you know, so you don't, it's one less thing you got to worry about. It's like, I got to drive myself from point A to B. Locally, and it doesn't have to be somebody that's has a lot of fire savvy. Just have better than fire savvy, somebody who knows where the roads are, if you're in an unfamiliar area, that can get you from point A to B and know the shortcuts, know some of the people, some of what's going on around there, and can, you know, write legibly or, you know, be pleasant enough to talk to some folks. But I find that to be a real valuable, you know, tool. Another thing that I always found good, if it's that kind of fire, like I'm using Bosque Fire as an example, because those are kind of chaotic, is that as an IC, I mean, you're dealing with operations, you're dealing with logistics, but the media is wanting to talk to you, you know, there's homeowners, there's all this other stuff. You could get a PIO there to take some of those people or to take that off of you.
One of the things I always like to do is take an early morning flight every morning. I kind of call it the IC flight, because if I can get up early in the morning, one of the first flights in the helicopter, go see what we're doing, then that, in my mind, I'm set for the day. That kind of seals in our strategies and tactics for the day, and then I go back and sit and type out just a kind of a short debrief of my thoughts and where I think we're going for that day. And then the first thing I do is I fire those off if possible to my agency administrator. So he knows exactly. I don't know if they even read it, but that doesn't bother me. But I fire off that. We can use that as a press release, and I can do stuff like that. That way everybody knows what we're doing. Everybody's dialed in.
And the other thing I always like, and this carries over into any fires, is communicating directly face to face. You know, whenever you can do that, you know, then you always know, like, hey, they got it. They know what I'm talking about, and I can assess them and their equipment and the whole situation. And you know, this goes for any IC, is if you get into the weeds, it's all of a sudden like, hey, you know, you're concentrating on one area, and like if I grab this shovel or hose and I'm squirting water, and this goes for your type 5 IC all the way up, you know, if you just get fixated on one area, because as a type 3, you know, you're looking at big picture and everything. So you really have to just trust, you know, delegate, and then trust those people that they're making the right decisions.
First thing is a logistics person. Somebody to really deal with the logistics, to take you away from that, so that you're not having to sit there and worry about ordering 120 meals. Somebody can take care of that for you. The second part of it is operations, is to have somebody out on the ground, seeing what needs to be done on the ground, so that you can concentrate on dealing with the local unit that you'll be working for. Because ultimately you'll be working for a district ranger, maybe a field manager through the BLM, a superintendent through the BIA, and having those individuals that can go out and actually see what's on the ground and give you that good solid feedback so that you can develop a plan. That's what we look at. That's what I look at. Of course, safety officer, if the opportunity's there. And the finance end of things, especially if there's a lot of resources that are involved, and especially if you bring in any other resources such as contract resources, possibly volunteer type fire departments that may be on scene already, those sorts of things. That's what I look for right away. Someone to be able to take on those other responsibilities, take them away from you so you can concentrate on what you need to get done.
The other thing too is, you know, inevitably there's always somebody that seems like the world's, you know, burning down, and they have this huge problem. And assessing what is a real problem. I had a fire once, and it was threatening, you know, a school. You know, it's like everybody's worst nightmare. But the people that were yelling about that, when I, you know, went over there, checked it out, and there was like big farm fields between the fire and the school. I mean, the probability of it getting there was like, you know, 0.5%. You know, so at that point I'm going like, well, there's no problem here, so I'm not going to like put resources to that. So, you know, just little watch outs. I mean, it's you're trying to get this information as it comes in and do good things with it, but you know, sometimes you just can't get so locked in. what I always look at is get organized as quick as you can. As I alluded to, getting that driver note taker with you, somebody that is kind of keyed in on the radio, because no doubt on a real active one, you got air to ground, you got the county guys talking, you got BLM, Forest Service, everybody's on the radio, trying to get everybody onto, well, either on the one channel or starting to delegate, like, hey, let's take the west side of the fire, go to this tag channel, and starting to make some sense out of that. So, making order out of chaos, getting organized.
The other thing is I require is every evening we all come back for an AAR. And I tell my operations guys that what we're going to do is I expect them, I tell them every morning, but they know it's coming, that I want them to pick somebody off an engine. They can't, not necessarily the engine boss, tell hotshot guys or anybody that we're going to pick on 2 guys that night, and they need to find 2 guys, and they are going to lead the AAR. And that's the one time of the day that the command and general staff, the ICT3, the officers, we don't talk. We let somebody else talk and let them follow up and see and try to get their ideas and say, yeah, and let them know, hey, what we started with this morning, did it work? Why didn't it work? And we have a good 30-minute AAR.